man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth.
All right, welcome back, family. Blessed to see all of you guys joining us. What a blessing it always is to have the best of our Father's inheritance coming together to expose the lies of this world that are against his provable and easily provable truth of creation. It has been such a great blessing sharing so many things with you guys and having you guys share so many things with us. And I am now finally going to be able to share some of the presentation, and I'm going to do it a little different. Of course, the presentation that we gave at TruthorCon, I did it a little differently in person, but I'm going to go in greater depth here because I have more time. I had about 45 minutes to cover everything that I'm going to cover today. And so hopefully that will allow us to get a little deeper. And I did tell the people there that I would go over all of the information here so that you guys can have access to it and share it. And I'm hoping to eventually paste a link to the actual presentation in the description. I haven't done that yet, but I plan on doing that pretty soon so that you guys can see the things that we're sharing more clearly, take screenshots that are higher quality, share them with your friends, and help us expose the dark side of education and worldly wisdom in general. It's talked about in the Bible, and it's going to be so much fun showing you guys how the prophecies, even back in Isaiah where he was talking about the wisdom of this world and him destroying it, we're going to see where it comes from, and we're going to prove that that's where it comes from. And it's going to be a powerful experience. And so I thank you guys for joining us. It's good to see so many of you all here. I like to see who do we have in the chat. I will probably come back and trim this out afterwards, but give people time to join in. I don't want people to miss out on this. And look who we have. We got Hannah, one of my students right there. Great to see you, Hannah. Humble truth soldiers in the crowd for sure. Legendary Tracy Jones. Oops, I just clicked the wrong one. Sorry. Tracy Jones. Got to meet her in person in Texas at the TruthorCon event. That was such a blessing, that event. I'm going to be going back next year. So if you want to have a fun conference experience, that's one of the best I can recommend. It was so much fun. So I look forward to that. And Tyler Porter, blessed to see you. All of our moderators out there, Tracy and Tyler, two of the most dedicated moderators in the business, fellow helpers. Thank you so much. And hello from Georgia, my neighbor. I'm on the northern side. If you're ever passing through, if you ever go to Florida, usually you pass right down past where we live. We're the part of Georgia people skip over to go to Florida. You might stop here and get gas or something. That's usually why they stop here. I've already scrolled all the way to the top. I was scrolling. I ran out of comments. Oh my goodness, I haven't done that in a while. Thank you, Censorship. I would like to thank our sponsors. Censorship is our number one sponsor. All right. Pretty peaceful, also from Georgia. All right. Also from Georgia. Oh my goodness, we're rising. Georgia Truth Soldier Army on the rise. From Canada. Oh wow. That's what one of the places I'm wanting to go. I'm wanting to meet Ken Heinebrook from Hanging on His Words, and hopefully you too, if we ever go that way. See the Northern Lights. Oh, there you go. Good to see you, Joe, the Flatino Garcia. I love it. Indiana and Alabama. This is amazing. Like, we really are blessed to be joined by so many of you people from all over. And southern Wisconsin, no part of Wisconsin is southern. Don't say that. Southern Wisconsin. I love we have some Wisconsin people in our class that are the best. And someone says, "Do I have the app?" I believe I do. I don't use it as much as I used to, but I do believe I have it. I heard it was probably compromised, but no, I still use it. Dave is an awesome brother. He is helping to promote CreationStandard. Is it there or there? There it is. CreationStandard with the app. And so I think that is amazing. Yeah, there is a Flat Earth app. Somebody asked, is there an app? Yes, there is. It's like, I think it's called the Flat Earth Sun and Moon Clock app or something along those lines. You can just type in Flat Earth Sun and Moon in the App Store and it should pop up. Possibly just Flat Earth. I don't think there's a whole lot of Flat Earth apps out there. And now that I'm saying that word over and over, there's going to be a Wikipedia article down there. All right. Well, it looks like we're getting more people. We're still in the double digits, and that's okay. I imagine if we all had to travel together with airplanes and all the expenses, this will be quite the crowd. Good to see you. And we got North Alabama. That's where I'm going to be speaking. If you're in the North Alabama area, I'll be going to Steve Martin's church. He is allowing me to speak again. I can't believe he's invited me back to speak again on November 22nd. Assembly of Yahweh in North Alabama, and I believe it's in Woodville, Alabama. So a great little hidden gem right there in Alabama. He was a Baptist preacher who got fired for trying to stick to the biblical text that he was supposed to be preaching about. He got fired, and it's a blessing that he did because he kept digging deeper into truth, and you should see him now. My goodness, such a great true soldier he is out here in Alabama. Or out there. I'm not there yet. I will be there on the 22nd. He will be out of town, though, so don't go there expecting to see him. I think he's going to be out of town that day. And when he finds out I'm speaking, no, I'm just kidding. He invited me. That'd be good. Be funny. Funny surprise. All right. Yeah, somebody said, love the Fight for Truth said, love his Enoch studies. Yeah, he goes deep into Enoch, and we're going to be talking about the book of Enoch today. I know we're going to offend some people, but we're going to show some proof that the words in that book can be proven to be true. A lot of them, prophecies. Judge a book by its prophecies. And the prophecies have come true, and the descriptions of the pre-flood world are actually visible. We're going to see some of that. Don't take my word for it. Oh, wait, we got another North Georgia folk. Wow. North Georgia, that's where we are. We are like 20 minutes from the state line, maybe less. But if my wife's driving, 10, 10 or 15. Nathan Reynolds. Yeah, that is an overflow, that guy. I've seen him. I saw him talking to Rob the first time I ever saw him years ago. He was talking to Rob Skiba, and I was like, whoa. Some of the stuff he was saying about the Nephilim and the bloodlines and the things that they do with the coins and like how they grew their wealth. It's pretty dark. The Reynolds family. He comes from the Reynolds family, and NASA was real big with aluminum foil. Now we know why they were using vacuum-proof tinfoil. All right, so this is the part I'm going to trim all this. I'm going to come back after and cut all this out. So when you watch this video in the playback, this probably won't be here. But I wanted to give people time to join because I know how it is when you're trying to join a live, you forget, and sometimes you get the notification like 10 minutes after it starts and you've missed so much. And I hate when I'm a viewer and I catch on and it's like 20 minutes in because I just wasn't notified by YouTube or whatever. So it is good to give people a little bit of time. What do I think of Nathan Oakley? I don't want to give opinions out loud in front of everybody. I just say, judge a tree by their fruits, the fruits of the Spirit on display. If they're not there, pray for them. All right. Well, awesome, family. This is going to be a longer video. I might end up making this because it says part 1, and I put that there for a reason because I may get to where we let me remove the comments there. That may be there may be a need for a part 2. I don't know. If there's no need for a part 2 and we get through everything today, that's okay. I just know that an hour and a half video is usually not something somebody will tune in and watch all the way through, but if it was a 15-part, show on Netflix, they would watch every single episode. But breaking it down is sometimes a little bit better, more manageable. But either way, we're going to cover some deep stuff. Let me drink some water before we get going. All right. Awesome. It looks like we're getting up there in the 80s. So we got enough people here. To begin, not that we need 80 people. We could just have 2 or 3 and still do this. But what a blessing it is to have you guys joining us again. This is a breakdown of the things we covered at TruthRecon, but it's really a breakdown of what we're up against and what I have seen that we're up against as educators. As most of you know, or some of you know, I was in public school education for nearly 17 years and got into some trouble while I was teaching for my beliefs that I share on here. More than once, actually 3 times, I got in trouble and called to the office. Different administration, of course, each time, but it was something that let me know that when you have just your beliefs, not what I'm saying to my children, but just my beliefs and me expressing them and putting my face out there, when you're an educator, that is highly frowned upon. And so I did not care. I mean, it hurt me that they would bring me in and sit down and talk to me about my beliefs. But at the same time, I know the powers that we're up against. And so I didn't fight. I didn't say, I know my rights. I'm doing things legally. I know that they just want to get rid of us creationists, but we do not need to go away. We need to let our Father's evidence speak for itself. And the things that I'm about to show you, if you're a public school teacher, you need to share this with your science departments. And even if you're not in the science department, share it with them. Let them see what we now see, or what we're about to see, because it is dark. It's outright demonic. The things that are in the public school standards, and every single day, it's a war that most of us don't see. There are millions upon millions of children, young adults, being exposed to demonic wisdom every single day of the week. And it's by design. We're going to see where that wisdom comes from, where it's mentioned in the Bible. And by the time we're done, we're all going to understand, hopefully, that this stuff is demonic, it is dark, and it's designed the way it is for a reason. And so I am going to full screen this. Hopefully I can figure that out. Let me see. There we go. And so we're going to go ahead and begin talking about that demonic wisdom of this world and bring about the fact that when you're an educator, and this is how this demonic wisdom was spread very efficiently, it was based on low-paid teachers, people like me. I started out, and when you start out as a teacher, they hand you a script, and they just call it a different name. They don't say, here's your script, you're an actor. They say, here's your standards, your test at the end of the year, and your scores and your worth as a human being are going to be based on these scores, and those scores are going to be better if you teach to these standards. And so here's this script. You can't deviate too far from it, or you'll get fired. And so essentially, you're just a very low paid actor. And I knew in my soul that there were demonic things in that script, and that I had to be crafty in how I taught. I couldn't just say, hey, class, I don't believe this, but here's what they say. That's not enough, because they're still going to just hear those words. They might space out when I say, hey, I don't believe this, but here it is. And they might see that evidence and think, oh, it's evidence because it's in a textbook. So we have to really be wise in how we are presenting things like evolution if you are, in fact, a science teacher. And I was fortunate enough to be able to be in a position in a science classroom, especially in biology, where I was able to break down the faulty side of evolution. I didn't get into the demonic side of it and how dark it is and the secret societies and all of that, but we just let the evidence, their evidence, speak for itself, and it falls apart, even with their numbers. And so that's where I'm coming from, a teacher who used to try to find ways to save my own children in my classroom, but I'm realizing that's not enough. There's children in other classrooms who are being force-fed lies. We have to do something. And that's where we started CreationStandard, where we now offer classes to children worldwide. We have a worldwide school right now in session, And we have truth soldiers from everywhere. And where it's legal, there's a lot of places where it's not legal joining us on this adventure. And so it's a blessing to help them have a foundation to where, heaven forbid, it's forced them, for them to go to school like it is in other places, which it probably will be soon. They will at least have a foundation that these lies cannot get a hold of and cannot break apart. And so that is our goal. And with this lesson, it's important to start out with the prophecy here in Isaiah. This is chapter 29. It's going to tell you what the deal is with this foolish wisdom, as well as where it comes from. And so it starts out by saying in 29 verses 13 through 15, and the Lord has said, this people draw nigh to me, or near to me, with their mouth, and they honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching the commandments and doctrines of men. Therefore, behold, I will proceed to remove this people, and I will remove them, and I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and will hide the understanding of the prudent. And so you're seeing a lot has already happened in this set of verses here. The people that say they love him, yet they're teaching the commandments and doctrines of men. I had so many people in my department, science teachers, so-called Christians, saying, I just love the Lord, I'm praying for you. But then when it came time to teach the doctrines of men or teach the truth, they would teach the doctrines of men so that they could keep their job because they were told to do so. And we're at a time where we cannot have that. We don't have time for that. And so you see the same things going on, not just in education. The Pharisees that our Messiah was dealing with weren't teaching the law and the commandments. They thought they were. I mean, they were trying to in some ways, but they were teaching the doctrines of men and things that they had added to their oral Torah and their Talmudic types of beliefs. And so our Father says he's going to destroy that wisdom and hide the understanding of the prudent. And right here, here's where you see those types of people, who they are. It says, woe to them that deepen their counsel and not by the Lord. Woe to them that take secret counsel and whose works are in darkness. The people that take secret counsel, that's who he's saying woe to. Those are the ones that take secret counsel. This is nothing new. The secret societies of today are not new. They are repackaged, maybe upgraded their tactics a little bit. They've had thousands of years to sharpen their skills at what they do. That's why it's worldwide. Secret societies are in every country, every single one. And it's the same secret societies. They are unified and spread out evenly across the entire world. And it tells us that those people that take secret societies, it says that whose works are in darkness, and they say, who has seen us, and who shall know us or what we do? That's what they're saying. And we see here, he says here, your turning of things upside down, this is the next verse, shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, he made me not. So just think of that scenario. You have, if pottery could talk, saying, I was not made. I come from stardust. I am just random processes, water and dirt coming together, wind and rain, all this stuff forming me the way that I am. And here we are, far more better formed, more complex than not just pottery. We're more complex than any supercomputer, any data center, any cell phone, saying stardust is what made us. Like that is literally what they believe and what they teach. I don't think they themselves believe it, but that is what these people that are turning the things upside down, the ones that keep secret counsel, getting people to say that he made me not. And so that verse, or those sets of verses there, showing us not only the ones that take secret counsel, who they are, that's the people that take secret counsel, but what they're getting people to believe. And when you look at the foolish wisdom that's forced on all the innocent people of this world, these innocent minds of children and adults, it has three essential ingredients. The first two of those three ingredients is that there's no creator. Nothing made everything billions of years ago. And number two, the earth is old. This earth is extremely old, billions of years. And not only that, it formed. Guess how our earth, they say it formed. Imagine this. You guys have probably looked at the sun with a solar filter. Could you imagine a rock covered with water forming from the sun? I know I sure couldn't, but that's where they say we came from. Piece of the sun broke off. Piece of the gas that our sun came from turned into a water covered rock, pressurized in a vacuum, traveling 500,000 miles per hour. That is the wisdom. That's two of the three ingredients that are needed for their third lie, the big one, that life from then could randomly spawn into existence and evolve into every bacteria, fungi, plant, animal, bird, insect, everything that we see today was because of that random nothingness creating everything. And so that is the lie, and where it comes from and how we're going to destroy that lie is to go and look at what Isaiah 29 was saying. It comes from those people that keep secret counsel. Here's the man, the father of geology. Remember, our Messiah said, call no man father. James Hutton, a member of the Canongate Lodge, United Kingdom, a fellow of the Royal Society, two separate secret societies. This guy was a part of them. His discoveries were made with another Mason, a Grand Master of the Antians Grand Lodge and the Grand Lodge. He was also a fellow of the Royal Society. And so these are the people, this is the company they keep when they're making discoveries that are now in our textbooks everywhere, that the earth is old. Two people in secret societies. And one of Hutton's popular beliefs that he was able to put out there and make popular was that the core of the earth is really hot. And that's that magma aspect. And so that's where that lie comes from. Could you imagine if the earth were indeed a globe, which it's not, but if it were, how hot it would be? Go deep down in the ocean. It's going to be extremely hot. I wouldn't even want to hold an object to scale with magma inside of it, the size of the earth, because it would burn my hands. But meanwhile, the deep ocean is extremely cold, and we don't have the problems we would be having if there were magma underneath us like this. We would not even have a North Pole. Compasses wouldn't work. Magma is not magnetic, and they say that our magnetic pole or field works like a bar magnet shoved through the earth. And so that was Mr. James Hutton. But guess who he was good friends with? He was great friends with a man named Erasmus Darwin. And Erasmus Darwin was the grandfather of Charles Darwin. And these two guys, you remember, evolution needs an old earth. Well, how convenient the guy who comes up with the old earth lie, the father of geology, is in the same Masonic lodge at the exact same time with Mr. Darwin. That is not a coincidence. The lie that he needed came from his good buddy that was in the same lodge at the same time. And not just Canongate Lodge, the Darwin family lodge. He was also a fellow of the Royal Society. And he was also a member of the Lunar Society, which I don't even have time to talk about, but that was another dark secret society. And people like Benjamin Franklin were in that. They only met during full moons, a lot like the witchcraft covens that meet on full moons. That's when they met. That's why they were called the Lunar Society. And so you have two people, secret council, just like Isaiah said, turning things upside down, getting people to believe they weren't made by a creator. And so those two people working hand in hand. Then you have, of course, the father of Charles Darwin. I'm sorry, the words are kind of not lining up here. It does that when you open it up in StreamYard. But the father of Charles Darwin was also a fellow of the Royal Society, which usually they say you have to be some sort of inventor or something to get in there. He has no discoveries of any kind. He was just a wealthy guy and a physician. He was in that society. And then along comes Darwin, repeating his grandfather's lies, the lies of a common ancestor that his grandfather had created. Even the family coat of arms had the slogan from something about shells. Everything comes from shells, something along those lines. Don't quote me on the exact wording, but essentially they come from shellfish. That was their belief. And so Charles Darwin comes along, makes this popular. He's in that same secret society. And then he not only married his first cousin that he didn't marry was a man named, what's his name? Francis Galton, I think was his name. Yeah, Francis Galton. And Francis Galton, his first cousin, used all those lies, old earth, evolution, and the racist aspects of it to come up with eugenics. And a lot of people don't know what eugenics is. We'll get into that. But before we do, I just want to show you the kind of company these people who keep secret counsel are keeping. This is where it gets really dark, but I will go over this. I'm not going to get too graphic. But the man who was also in the same Lunar Society as Erasmus Darwin was named Benjamin Franklin. If you've ever had a $100 bill, you've probably seen this guy. His face is on our largest currency, probably for a reason. He might have made some sacrifices. I don't want to say he did. This is all speculation based on some calculations and some coincidences, we'll say. But they found, after he had passed away, in recent times, back in 1997, 15 individuals underneath Benjamin Franklin's house. The same guy that was going to Erasmus Darwin's meetings on the full moon services that they had. 15 bodies, 6 of which were children. And the narrative is they, of course, try to glorify him more as this person who was all about furthering education, and he was into anatomy, or his landlord's son-in-law was into anatomy. And so what does Darwin do? Or not Darwin, I'm sorry. Franklin, what does Franklin do since his landlord's son is into anatomy? They say that he just allowed him to bring these bodies into his house and hide them in the basement. And if you've ever watched murder shows of any kind, you know that hiding a body in the basement is not an easy thing to do, based on how they say that the smells come out, because these are flesh and bones. He wasn't just bringing bones into his house. These were bodies being brought into the house. And 15. And his landlord's son-in-law that he let do this was only the landlord's son-in-law for a few years. So 15 bodies in a few years would have been quite a bit. Well, my thought was, if this guy was in a secret society and he did one per year, how long did he live in that house if there's 15 bodies? And he lived in it for about 16 years. And so that is just a little dark side note to show you the kind of company these people keep. Mr. Franklin was also in the Hellfire Club, which is a satanic club. And I didn't know all that. That wasn't something I was taught in history. I was always taught these guys were the good guys, and that was the history lesson I got. But come to find out, there's a darker side to things. And Mr. Franklin can't defend himself. He has since been, deceased. But this is stuff that comes about after he died. And if people find bones under my house, I'm okay with you guys talking about it, because if I had something to do with it, like, that is just so dark. But the Fellows of the Royal Society, just to give you a snapshot of other members, more modern and some of the more famous ones, we have Mr. 1666, Isaac Newton, and then the island boy himself in the wheelchair, Stephen Hawking, and some other people you recognize as well. And they are mandated to keep secrets according to their own writings from way back when in the 1600s. Now, Francis Galton, this is where it's about to get dark and demonic. I'm going to expose that dark demonic side of evolution, the racist side of it. It's extremely racist. You have Francis Galton coming up with eugenics, and what that is, for anyone who doesn't know, because that's not an everyday word that we all use. It was the belief that we should improve the genetic quality of a human population by preventing the ones that they deemed to be inferior people or races from reproducing, while promoting the reproduction of the so-called superior races and genes. And just a little side note here, I'm going to have a lot of side notes for you guys. Francis Galton was at the same college as Mr. Aleister Crowley, and they're from the same town. Imagine that. What are the chances? And Mr. Aleister Crowley's satanic book talks about eugenics. Strange. Well, Crowley's view in eugenics was very similar to Francis Galton's. He believed in an elite group of super beings, or superior beings, who had the right to live without law, lawless people, while the rest of humanity were to be slaves and serve the super being's will. He wrote, kindness and conscientiousness and altruism are really drawbacks to the progress of humanity. Instead, the elite super beings should dominate the weak and less fit, exploit them, and if necessary, kill them. Compassion is the vice of kings, Crowley writes. Stamp down the wretched and the weak. Sounds like a role model right there, right? And another side note, his book of the law that he wrote, that was written by demons, allegedly, was put out written in 1904. And you have the first sterilization laws with eugenics, like Aleister Crowley and Galton were talking about, in 1907. And the other name for his book is liberal, right there. Now, the eugenics aspect, the racist aspect in eugenics, was directly influenced by racism and evolution, as Charles Darwin's own views popularized the idea of a racial hierarchy, with white Europeans being more evolved and civilized than other savage or barbarous races. And his good friend, this is somebody that you need to bring to your science department, these pictures. because the guy that drew these pictures, his name was Ernst Haeckel, friends with Charles Darwin, and his racist ideas were shown in his drawings, not his science, not his discoveries, not like he was going out and digging up these missing links and drawing this stuff. These missing links were drawn based on his beliefs. That's it. No science there. And these drawings shaped the mind of the eugenics program in Nazi Germany. That's why at number 11, you can see that one looks kind of Jewish, right? And then as you go up the list, look at the numbers. They have them arranged with the least evolved at the bottom, going up the list, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, starting to look more like an African American, and then turning into a caveman. Looks like your Geico caveman after the African American. Then I guess that would be probably like your Hispanic, and then your Asian, and then your highly evolved super race that they believed in, the white, European. And so these are racist ideas. They're not scientific whatsoever, but they were put about and they caused some really sad things to happen. One of those around that time period in the early 1900s was a young boy named Otabenga and some of the people in his area. He was from the Congo. And, excuse me, he was kidnapped after his family was murdered. His family was murdered by his government's military. And he was sold by slave traders to a white supremacist known as Samuel Phillips Werner. And from there, he was brought to the St. Louis World Fair in 1904. But after he was put on display, as like a missing link there, they then let him go back to Africa, where he was forced to live with a different people because his tribe had been wiped out. He remarries. Sadly, his wife died. I mean, this guy has a story like Job. I mean, he lost it all. And she dies. She gets bit by a snake, they say. That's the story, anyways. Otabenga is sent back, and this time he goes to the American Museum of Fake Natural History. They call it natural history. I can't even say that. That's just, those places are just indoctrination stations. But he's brought to this Museum of Natural History that's still in New York City to this very day. Brought there. Again, he was not able to leave the premises. Objectified by audiences. This is the evolutionists. This is the stuff they did. After that, his next destination would be another place that's still there, the Bronx Zoo in 1906. He was placed on exhibit in the monkey house with an orangutan. You can even see in this picture, it's kind of hard to see, he's actually sitting down with a monkey or standing up with a monkey. The monkey's holding on to him. And so they would do that because his teeth had been filed down. They were pushing him as a missing link. People were coming in all over to see this stuff. And the guy that drew the pictures that helped put about these things, Ernst Haeckel, these are his embryo drawings. I've shared this many times in the past. On the very top row, look at the top row. Those are his drawings. And when I was a young, 5th or 6th grade student, my teacher said, see how similar these embryos are? The fish, the salamander, the turtle, the chicken, the pig, the cow. All of these look like us at one point. And so embryology proves evolution. And that's how they're supposed to teach it. However, over 100 years ago, when people were taking photos of embryos, they found out that this guy, Ernst Haeckel, was a deceitful liar. His pictures were fake. Meanwhile, 100 years later or more, his pictures are still in textbooks. And my last year teaching in the high school classroom a couple years ago, I saw those same pictures from a racist, precursor to Nazi Germany kind of racist guy. I saw those pictures that he had drawn on a test, a state-mandated test. They're already in the textbooks, but they were on a test, allowed to stay in there, even though they are wrong. And I brought that to my department's attention. I said, look, this is what real embryos look like. These pictures aren't valid. And they say, oh, they're close enough. I don't think so. Real photos is what we should be using. We're not in the cartoon science. We should not be doing cartoon science anymore. And so those are some dark things of the dark side of evolution and that side of the lie. But we're going to look at one more guy. This is the founder, and it's about to take off here. The what they call the founding father of modern geology. We already saw the father of geology, James Hutton. He was in the secret society, the Canongate Lodge with the Darwin family. This guy was in the Sun God Apollo University Lodge. He was also a fellow of the Royal Society. And he was born the year that James Hutton died. He was born in 1797. And one thing he said that caught my attention is that in his own words, we need to free the science from Moses. And what I like to show my students, and I encourage all of you science teachers out there to show your students this, is that he didn't say Moses never existed. He didn't say there's no proof of the Red Sea crossing. He just said we need to free the science from Moses. In other words, get away from those biblical stuff. There is a bias, and we're told as creationists we can't have a bias, but they can. They have their bias. They put it out there. Their bias, their racist views, all those things, they put them out there, and it still is allowed. And we're going to be showing how that stuff, like he said, freeing science from Moses, should never have happened, because we have technology. It's not the 1800s anymore. We have scuba diving technology that's been invented since Charles Lyell brought about his false message that goes against the truth of creation. There's chariot wheels on the bottom of the Red Sea that are still there to this day, gold plated even. And not only that, the pillar of fire that we read about in Exodus 14, going through as our Father peered out through that fire at the Egyptians. He's looking at them through this fire. And you think to where we are now, the enemy was able to convince these foolish Egyptians, hey, look at all the nice chariots you have. Do you really think a little pillar of fire is going to cause you any harm? Like, go around it. Like, it's no big deal. Ignore the waters he's parting. Just go on. You can take these people out, these shepherds. And they foolishly went that way. And now we're at a point where they're deceiving the world powers, these unclean spirits, same ones at work, that they can take the Most High when he comes back. Look at all the jets you have. Look at the tanks you have. Look at all these things. The atomic bombs, the so-called atomic bombs, all that stuff. But the pillar of fire, we have evidence of that. It was there. It did pass through that shoreline. And when you go there, you can see evidence because it was over 3,000 degrees. It was so hot. It melted the soil. Stones are infused in melted soil. You can even see puddles where that soil was so hot, it melted so well that it turned into like a flat puddle with stones sticking out of it. And people went there and chipped away. You can see where the soil is melted together, where the pillar of fire passed through. And so Mr. Charles Lyell has some problems here. Trying to separate the science from Moses, not going to happen. We have to understand what Moses was saying, our Father's journey, his truth of creation. Because remember, Moses and the first 5 books go hand in hand. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, all of that. If you're throwing out Moses, you're throwing out our creation story. And that's what they were trying to do. And they didn't just throw it out, try to ignore it. They also created their tree of life. And for years, as a science teacher, what was I doing? I was always trying to look at the branches. And this is what a branch on their tree of life would look like. They don't focus too much on the bottom. They want you looking at the end product. Problem is, you never saw pictures like this. You always saw pictures like this. Never did they look like this because there are no missing links. And it's harder to fake them. It's easy to get a ape bone fragment and then make a statue about it, and make it look like this caveman. But with trees, it's different. It's not as easy to fake. And so they just hoped we wouldn't ask questions about plants. But the thing we're going to do is focus on that because there's over 391,000 known species of plants. And there are so many differences in these things. They do so many different miraculous things, but not only that, they require soil. So even if they were able to walk out on land, those of you who are into farming, you know this. If I just said, hey, here's some rocks and some water, I want you to make some good topsoil and to just start selling that topsoil, you would go out of business because that soil wouldn't work. You can't just make soil out of rocks. Good soil requires the incorporation of plants and animal remains and living bacteria and all these things that the early earth would not have had. When those plants began to even learn how to walk on land, they would have ran into rocks. They wouldn't have had soil that was conducive for growing plants. And not only that, plants, by intelligent design, our Father designed them to eat a strange diet. Imagine if this was your diet and you said, hey, I'm going on the plant diet. I'm just going to eat sunlight, air, and water. That would be tough. If there was anything that could do that and not just consume it, but grow into millions of pounds, that's what trees do. Sunlight, air, and water. And they grow into multi-million pound creations. especially those ones out in California, those massive trees. And the largest tree in the world, they say, is 2.7 million pounds. They call it General Sherman. They named it after a guy who burned people alive. Imagine that. And so this thing got about as large as the statue of Liberty. And this thing got huge. Just kidding. That was intentional, guys, in case you're wondering. The Statue of Liberty is Lucifer, I believe. Now, where this destroys their fake tree of life, and this is what I want you guys to understand, is that plants do need carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. And they're going to make sugar and oxygen. There is no machine in creation that can do that. None. If we could do that, we would solve world hunger. Our Father did that at creation. And when you look at what they need, though, there's carbon and oxygen. Carbon dioxide has oxygen. And my thought was very simple. Where did the oxygen for the carbon dioxide come from if plants didn't exist yet? So I looked it up. The primary source of oxygen for carbon dioxide on early Earth was photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis made the oxygen for carbon dioxide. How? You have to have carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. And so their bogus explanation for how life originated, especially plant life, falls apart. You can't have CO2 without the O2. You have to have oxygen. And if plants haven't made it yet, it's not there. Not only that, this is from the Institute of Health, the National Institute of Health, the NIH. It's further going to fall apart. Because when you start talking about origins of life, you have to talk about those first cells that ever existed. That was our creators, these accidents, right? That just came about, these random cells that spawned into existence. Part of the sun broke off and, things happened. Well, guess what? They say, this is their words. I'm going to read it. Then we're going to show you how it falls apart. The first cell is thought to have arisen by the enclosure of self-replicating RNA. Sounds plausible if you don't know biology. Self-replicating RNA and associated molecules in a membrane composed of phospholipids. That's a lot of words. Do not be intimidated by their big words. That's what I was guilty of for years. I would hear those words and go, man, that sounds extremely complex and possible because I don't know what they mean. Well, self-replicating RNA, if it's self-replicating, it doesn't need a cell membrane if it's good on its own. But something that's self-replicating, just imagine if you had a big stack of Legos, like 10 different pieces of Legos, different colors, different shapes, all stuck together. And all of a sudden, you come back and those same exact Legos that were stacked together had multiplied, had doubled. Well, how did they double? Well, they would need something that's going to take the ingredients for the first ones, remake it, assemble it the way it was, add everything exactly as is and in the right order. You need a copy machine to make copies. You need some advanced equipment to make copies of things. And RNA and DNA is the most advanced structure in creation. And so, or one of the most. And so you don't just have self-replicating RNA in nature. And not only that, self-replicating RNA, let's just pretend that something that complex could exist. There's no known life that's just RNA. DNA is always involved with living cells. You don't have one where it's just a self-replicating RNA inside a cell membrane. It doesn't happen. And so those other parts, usually when you have animations, this is an animation in my other presentation, but it's not here. StreamYard doesn't allow that, I guess. But the moving parts and animations, when we show them to our children, are just floating to where they need to go. They're just flying in place. Everything's just moving like clockwork, and no one ever asks how. This is in the dark. These things can't see. They don't have eyes. How are they moving? It's the breath of life guiding them. And that self-replicating RNA and other parts, if it was in the water, let's say in that vast ocean, that water-covered rock that they have of their creation, if it was there, the chance of phospholipids finding it, what is the chance? Because this is what I was asking myself in the classroom as I'm drawing this all out on the board. What are the chances of this happening? And I looked up where do phospholipids float around in water? Where are they made? Are they made in nature? Are they some sort of like lightning strike phenomenon where lightning hits water and now there's a phospholipid? Like, where do they come from? And I found out that they aren't made in nature. You do not find these things just floating around in water. They are made only by existing cells. and they're made by the endoplasmic reticulum. That's what the science textbooks teach. They're made here. Here's where you find them. But the NIH says, oh, it was just floating around in the water, and that's how it found them. That's impossible. And their tree of life falls apart, their fake tree of life, when these things fall apart. So we have to make it known that these are impossible. There's no way. And so if the fake tree of life is impossible, my question was, when I was looking into this stuff, what are dinosaurs? Because I know that the timeline's not working. Their tree of life isn't working. What are dinosaurs? Why does everybody seem to agree that they're millions of years old? Why are they everywhere? On television, cartoons, everywhere. Everyone's in agreement, right? So that was a big stumbling block for me. I just thought, well, Genesis must not be 100% literal. Maybe when the earth was without form and it was void, there was a chapter before that. It became void and there were dinosaurs. That was where my mind was going. I did not realize there's a much easier answer, and it has nothing to do with changing the Bible. You don't have to add anything to the story. It's true as is. And the Bible tells us there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. People were worshiping them back then. They still worship them to this very day. And so that's the simple answer. There were giants back then. There was corrupted flesh, but it gets darker. We're going to look at what they do. And I know a lot of people don't like the book of Enoch, but we're going to see some proof to it. So I'm going to show you some text, and then we're going to find some proof. And chapter 7 says that all the other things together, the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go in unto them and to defile themselves with them. This is talking about the fallen. And so the Genesis calls them the sons of God. Here, it's talking about the watchers, the sons of God. And it says, and they taught them charms and enchantments, stuff that's glorified in Hollywood today, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. I think there's more to the acquainted with plants than we could understand right now. And I think we're going to show some evidence that I think will indicate that. But I think they needed to be acquainted with plants, because not only are they going to be producing giants, they're going to have to now feed these things. But they became pregnant, it says, and they bare great giants whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all acquisition of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, this is what they did. They turned, it says, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid acquisition against the lawless ones. Not only that, they corrupted the world. The world needed a reset. They didn't just do that. They became, once they did all this, they had a judgment. Their judgment was to fight to the death. And in Enoch chapter 10, it says they were to go one against the other, that they may destroy each other in battle. For length of days shall they not have. And 5 chapters later, in chapter 15, we're seeing what happens after they were killed. They didn't just die, end of story. That'd be great. But they died. And it says, and this is talking to the watchers, the ones who had to watch them die, that therefore I have not appointed wives for you, for as for the spiritual ones of the heaven, in heaven is their dwelling. And now the giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. And I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but we do have unclean spirits. We have powers of darkness at work. They have an origin. I believe this is their origin. They were taught all the things that they do today, that they are teaching the world. They were taught these secret things by their fathers, the watchers. And you see what those things are, and it's in alignment with eugenics. It's in alignment with what we're doing today. Number 9 on the list is abortion, the smiting of infants in the womb. They taught this to mankind. The mixing of roots, you hear about things like that. They were giving them mixtures that could help them not get pregnant, birth control. They were doing things that we're doing now that we think is just new technologies. They were highly advanced. They knew things. They were revealing it. They were carving it in stone, stones that would survive the flood, stones that Noah's grandchildren would see and sin because of that. We see that in the book of Jubilees. And these demons were tormenting the sons of Noah and the grandsons of Noah so much, they cried out. And 90% of them were bound. So we're only dealing with 10% of these demons. And it's a lot. There's still a lot. You remember they said, we are legion, we are many. There's a lot of them still on this earth, but we're just dealing with 10%. And my whole thought was, if Enoch's account is true, if Genesis is true from the giants of old aspect, there's going to be evidence of that. There's going to be proof. We're going to find it. You can only hide so much, right? There's people inhabiting the entire earth now, pretty much. There's going to be cut marks. If they fought to the death, if these beings, which I believe, like Rob Skiba says, the Clash of the Titans is based on, all that Greek mythology is based on the Nephilim. I think there's truth to that. But if there is truth to that, there's going to be cut marks on the bones. And as I was putting this presentation together, I just said, let's look into that. Let's see if there's cut marks on these giant bones. And come to find out, I wasn't shocked to find this out. There are cut marks on giant bones that we find all the time. And scientists are baffled. And then they'll say, well, this just means the cavemen were able to do this way sooner than we thought. They had tools of, killing. I mean, a 24,000, like this creature right here, the bone on the left, this giant femur bone you're seeing laying down that's as large as a person or bigger. They said the creature would have weighed 24,000 pounds. We can't even fathom that kind of weight. You kill a grizzly bear that weighs 450 pounds. You think that was hard to do with a shotgun or a powerful hunting rifle. Imagine trying to kill a 24,000 pound creature with sticks and stones after you've just invented fire. Imagine. That's what they tell us happened 125,000 years ago. Cavemen did it. And they're cut marks on giant bones. I believe this is remnants of evidence of that clash of the Titans. And you can even look in further, zoom in further. They turned against each other. They were devouring each other. I don't know what their teeth looked like, but it's pretty scary if it left this big of a bite mark on a bone. I don't know if you've ever eaten things with bones, usually your teeth don't sink in like that. This was a large, powerful creature. Could be a corrupted flesh creature. Could be a Nephilim. Who knows? Now, here is where things get really, really strange for the false dinosaur narrative. We find bones. These so-called paleontologists find bones. And just imagine if these bones did come from what are now demons, they would be able to tell people, hey, here's where my bones were. Go look for them. This is about where I died before the flood came. Go find it. And so these people, with their agendas, they were finding large bones. And some of these bones, like this femur bone here, they named it the Titanosaur. Titan. Remember Clash of the Titans, Titanosaur? The specimen, they also nicknamed it the Giant. Would have been huge. Some of these femurs and what look like tibias. I thought this was a tibia. They say it's a femur bone, but I think it kind of looks more like a tibia. Again, larger than a grown man. Imagine how big this creature would have been. And my investigation into this, when I'm seeing evolution falls apart, the dinosaur narrative that I thought was so solid, I thought, they're in museums everywhere you go. You can't find a museum that doesn't have dinosaurs. When you think science museum, you think dinosaurs in space. That is by design, demonic design. These demons want you glorifying in the false version of reality based on any bone fragments you find that are pre-flood, even if it's their own. They want them put on display, worshipped by children as these creatures that were just so cool and part of pop culture. But when you try to find out if these displays have, are they complete skeletons or not, it says no. The dinosaur bones in museums are not real bones, but rather the fossilized remains of the dinosaurs that have been replaced by minerals over millions of years. Then there's the truth right here. Museums often use a combination of real bones and casts to display dinosaur skeletons. A lot of it's fake. There might be some real bone fragments in there. Very seldom are they real. It's mostly plaster. Looks real though. A mold of a real bone is going to look real. Then you got some artwork going on. Now, when you find the Titanosaur, they'll find bones like the ones in red here, and they'll construct the entire rest of the creature. They won't stand it upright. They won't make it look like what it probably really was. They'll make it look like some long-necked dinosaur. But when you find out, or look for the complete skeletons, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to find the complete skeletons, find some answers. And when I kept trying to find complete skeletons, I was having trouble. And so I looked up how many complete dinosaur skeletons have ever been found. And they said that paleontologists have never found a complete dinosaur skeleton. Often part of the skeleton is missing, either because the bones were washed away during deposition. Washed away during deposition. What does the word deposition mean? It says deposition is the laying down of sediment carried by wind or flowing water. These bones were washed away by flowing water. What kind of water or wind, if it were wind, could wash away bones as large as a vehicle, larger than a person? Probably the floodgates of the heavens when they opened up. 7 in number, because creation was divided into 7 parts, 6 part land, 1 part water, according to 2 Esdras, a book that Christopher Columbus used to get quoting, because their globes back then, he said, only had 5 continents. And he says, no. This book tells me there should be 6 continents. And guess what? The book was right. 2 Esdras was in the King James originally, the 1611 version. You can look that up. And that's what it says about creation. It also talks about the firmament founded on the waters. That type of water flow is the only thing that's going to move bones that large, or other Nephilim, probably, while they're fighting to the death, decapitating each other, why there's no heads attached. Now, not to glory in these creatures. They try to get you to do that all the time, just to give you a scale to how big these giants would have been, why they ran out of food and turned on each other. Their hearts would have pumped 90 liters of blood per minute. This is according to a special I was seeing on the dinosaurs, when they were saying this giant, talking about the Titanosaur. You know, you had David Attenborough. He said this giant's heart would have pumped 90 liters of blood per beat. You know, and they're just in awe, because they want you to be in awe of these corrupted flesh creatures. And ours would have only done about 0.07 liters per beat. Their heart would have weighed about 500 pounds. And I did the math to see how much larger that is than the 12-ounce human heart, and it said it was 666.666 times larger. I was not trying to get that number. I was just doing the math. And correct me if I'm wrong. You can do the math yourself. I did it, and that's what I got the first try, and I'm not a math person, so it could be off. But your heart, just to understand how complex you are, your heart is electric. You have an electric pulse generated every time your heart beats. Your heart generates its own electricity. You never have to plug in and charge. But it does about 3 millivolts of electricity per beat. That's why when somebody's heart signal gets messed up, they shock you to bring you back. They're charging you. It's your first time charging. Just kidding. They are helping get that rhythm back. And so they use electricity. You are an electric being. You have an electric heartbeat. Now, the giant heart, being 500 pounds, would have almost had 2 volts of electricity per beat. They would have eaten a lot of food. A lot. We talked about them being acquainted with plants, according to Enoch. I think there's more to that. And I had somebody, when I was talking about the Devil's Tower that I actually got to go see a couple years ago, that, you know, I think it looks like a tree stump, but it could just be a natural formation. And he said there's no way with the pre-flood timeline that this tree could have ever grown that big. And I thought about that, and I was like, man, he's right. There's just no way. And then I looked at pictures of this structure that looks odd. It doesn't look like magma shot up out of the ground. And I zoomed in. And when I zoomed in, I saw what looked like bricks. And I thought, were they repairing this thing? Were they using bricks to fix this structure? Was it falling apart? You can see layers. Something's peeling off, right? These sloppy looking bricks. I thought, surely this wasn't some brick structure they made back in the day, pre-flood. And then I realized I might be looking at something that just looks like bricks, because there's something in nature that looks like bricks, and it's plant cells. Looks just like that. Identical. And if you had cells that were that large, replicating, making copies, then it could have grown that big. It would have needed a lot of water. It would have used a lot of resources, a lot like AI is doing today, which I believe is the wisdom of the fallen coming back here, demonic technology. They are using these centers that use large quantities of water. Every time you ask them a question, it uses water. It's going to eventually run out. The more they take over, the more they're going to run out of our resources. We're going to start losing water. And it's because they're using it for these large data centers. Here's the top of the tower. Got the hexagon shape. There's wood cells. Very, very similar. Here's, if you look at it under a microscope, one of the pieces of the rock I was able to zoom in on with one of those handheld microscopes and take a picture. And I thought if it was a large cell, piece of a large cell that broke off, there's going to be evidence of that. And the more I looked around on that thing, the more it looked like it was once a living thing, like it was once a cell or something. There's even connective tissues here. Doesn't look like magma that just came out of the rock. Very beautiful. It's got like crystals in it. I mean, really, really cool. And so that's just my theory. This is not really one of those things like, oh, you got to believe it. That's my theory about those types of structures that look a lot like tree stumps. But no, you don't have to lose fellowship with us if you don't believe that, because I really don't care. You don't have to believe in that. That's not the gospel. But interesting little side note there for this account of the giants of old. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is if this account of Enoch is true, we've already seen evidence of the bones being cut, these large bones spread about. But if it was true, these unclean spirits would want us to still glorify in their bones, in the bones of any creation they made, any dragon, any corrupted flesh they made. They would want us to glory in them, and that is what they have done. I think I could speak for about everyone my age that when Jurassic Park came out, it was the coolest thing. We all watched it. They rolled the TV into my classroom so that we could watch it. And that didn't happen very often. When that TV cart came into your classroom back in the 90s and the late 80s, mid to late, I mean, it was like, whoa, this is a big deal. We're going to get to watch a video. And that was back when children could actually watch an entire video without stopping, because we didn't have social media making it to where now you can't show students videos. They can't watch, if it's not a 1 minute TikTok video, they can't watch it. But they want us to glorify in their bones. And these things go town to town. I mean, just look at the faces of these creatures, and you got children riding on their backs like, yay, I'm riding a corrupted flesh creature, and it's reinforcing the billions of years to our children in a way that's glorified, and it's demonic, it's dark. And it came about, this is where, if I had to ask you guys, pop quiz, where do you think this lie came from? And you saw the beginning of this lecture, you would say probably from the UK. And they were probably fellows of the Royal Society. And they were. This is around the same period of time that the old earth lie is coming about, and evolution and eugenics. All at the same time, at the same place, in the same clubhouse. And two of them, Gideon Mendel and William Buckland, they came up with things like the iguanodon and the megalosaurus. And then the other guy, he was a Order of the Bath. He has a weird name. Doesn't look like that would be anything special, but he was one of those people. He kind of gives me nightmares. You look at his face, or reminds me of that painting in the Ghostbusters movie. I don't know, the really creepy one. If you saw the movie back in the day, you know what I'm talking about. But Sir Richard Owen, knighted. I guess that means you're a knight if you're a sir. Sir Richard Owen, Order of the Bath. That's what he was knighted into. Also a fellow of the Royal Society. He didn't discover anything. He just came up with the word dinosaur. So that's where he gets his claim to fame. And his homework, or their homework, what they had did, all the things they did to prove dinosaurs were what they say they are. This is it right here. There's iguanodon, and there's your megalosaurus. That looks like a third grade art project gone horribly wrong. And so that is where that story almost originates from. But we have older accounts of giant bones. There was another fellow of the Royal Society, Robert Plot. This was in the 1600s when they found a giant femur. And according to him, this was the femur of a giant human. Okay? 1677. Think about that. Someone saying, oh, wow, look, everybody knows the Bible's valid. Here's a giant femur bone. No one really thought much about it. Everybody's like, oh, okay, makes sense. There were giants in those days. And for 150 years or so, that was the story. People believed this is a giant human femur because that's what it was. Now they say, oh, experts came along. Fellows of the Royal Society showed up and said, nope, it's a dinosaur. And so that was the 1600s, 1800s and all that. Modern day, this is where this stuff should all just fall apart. But science is stuck in the 1800s. It really is. Because back in 2012, you had a man, Mark Armitage. He discovered soft tissue on dinosaur bones. And this is where things get interesting. Because the soft tissue he found was provably not millions of years old. Tissues that are soft and stretchy don't stick around that long. And Mark Armitage found fame and fortune, and became a fellow of the Royal Society. Just kidding. That doesn't happen when you find things that prove the Bible. He got fired from the university he worked at for his discovery. They said to keep his religion out of this department. His religion was actually just proof of a young earth. That was what he found. And so he got fired, but he went to work. He didn't just cry and leave, and he didn't get all the fame and the fortune, but he's still making discoveries. He's still looking into this stuff, still examining those bones, breaking them apart. And he found that there is clotting in the bones, which is what happens when things drown. So these giant creatures, if they weren't Nephilim, if they were still creatures roaming around, they died from drowning. On every continent, they have found blood clotting in the bones because the blood clotting leaves iron deposits in the pores. So that is how they were able to find out these things drown. I think that is some cool forensics that debunks the lie, and he's not the only one. There's more. Back in, I think, 2005, somewhere around there, earlier, there was Mary Schweitzer. She stumbled upon something that was astonishing, this article said. Signs of life that may radically change our view of ancient beasts. Yeah, radically change them. Yeah, it shows that they aren't old. She found a red blood cell inside of one of these capillaries. Amazing stuff. And she was ostracized and ridiculed as well. Kept her job, though, somehow. Mary Schweitzer. And now that we've seen those discoveries, we're going to talk about the real reason why we're seeing what we're seeing these days. We have not just the book of Enoch and Genesis being true, we have our Messiah's words being true. He says that as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. And I hope that was just about the taking up in marriage aspect. I really don't want the corrupt flesh and the giants and all that stuff coming back. But, Noah, he was a conspiracy theorist back in his day when he was talking about things happening that were actually happening back then, that there was going to be a flood and the firmament was going to open up. And of course, we also are conspiracy theorists until that firmament opens up yet again. I know so many of you are waiting for that. And trust me, it's close, because right here, don't trust me. You can believe me. Don't put your trust in man. It's getting close, though, because we are seeing the days of Noah stuff happen. That's what separates now from the days of Noah, or all the time periods in the days of Noah apart, is that the days of Noah had the corrupting of all flesh, and they were dead set on doing that. They were making hybrids and chimeras and all these different things. And now, as of 2019, I think when a lot of it started feeling a shift around that time, spiritually, they were now making creations by law that they're allowed to do that are human animal chimeras. Prior to that, in Japan, they were allowed to do it. They just had to terminate it at 14 days. Now they can do that. They can let them grow to term and implant them into a animal's uterus. Think about that. And so they no longer have the ban. But the stuff they're doing in the open, they've done far worse, I'm sure, behind the closed doors. But here we have a scientist, Juan Carlos, and this guy asked for the Pope's blessing, of course, before he passed away, I believe, I hope, asked for his blessing on doing this, on making human-animal chimeras, and the Pope said, for sure, you've got my blessing, something along those lines. So he did what the Pope allowed him to do, gave him his blessing for it, and started making human-animal chimeras. And now, days of Noah, we have a human-pig chimera. 28 days into growth. I don't know what they did with this creature, but very dark. And you can see it has hooved feet. Looks like it almost has human hands. I'm no pig embryo expert, but that looks like half human, half pig to me. Very, very sad to see stuff like that, because our Father's words were against that, the mixing of things that were of different kinds. And that's what the other nations were doing. They were doing that. He was teaching his people to be set apart. Don't do those things. Do not lay with animals. And so right here is a look at a human monkey chimera embryo. They colored the human parts pink or red, I believe. You can see those there, they say. Don't know how they're doing all that, but that's what they say they're doing, corrupting all flesh yet again. And I want to end, not really end, I may keep going after this, but by looking at a quote from Rob Skiba, who, that's why when I went to the conference, I really wanted to bless his son Jeremiah with a presentation that covered a lot of things that Rob covered. And one of the quotes that has stuck with me that Rob used was this, talking about the Bible, is my compass in a sea of lies. And I love that quote because it is. It's a compass. It is guiding us. The Holy Spirit is guiding us to see more of what these words were saying and how we can put them to the test, find out they're true. And that book, the Bible, talks about so many awesome things. One of those is us being grafted into an olive tree. And the book of Romans, they were talking about just that. And the olive tree, they weren't supposed to be boasting about that. Boast not against the branches, they say, because you're grafted into an olive tree. Grafting in is not a natural process. You have to have a gardener who is very advanced and knows that the trees have to be of the same kind. You can't just get a pear tree and graft it into an olive tree. The chromosome numbers have to be very close, or if not the same, or you have problems down the road. We are grafted into the olive tree, a tree that already had roots. That's the trees you graft into. You cut off a branch or a branch is removed, you add branches. Those branches are then going to benefit from the strong roots that are already there. Massive root structures that have been there. And so this unnatural process requiring a gardener, someone said in the comments at one time, maybe that's why Jesus was mistaken for a gardener after the resurrection. I thought that was fascinating. Now, remember, when looking into grafting, this is what I thought was really cool. Trees, when grafting trees, it says the scion, or the part being grafted, and the rootstock must be of the same species or very closely related, meaning they need to be the same kind to successfully form a graft or union. Grafting between vastly different types of trees is not possible. We, as humans, as people, have 46 chromosomes in our somatic body cells. Your reproductive cells have 23. Two halves make a whole. When you have a child, that child is half mom, half dad, and has 46 in their body cells. And of all the trees in this world with chromosomes were allegedly only discovered in 1879. All the trees in the world, thousands to choose from, over 70,000. I mean, just lots of trees to choose from. Only one of two out of those, or two out of all of those, have 46 chromosomes. The olive tree is one. And so being grafted in to the olive tree is a powerful, not just expression, poetic, all that. It's scientific. When our prophets were speaking this, chromosomes hadn't been invented yet. Our Father was inspiring them to talk about things that science would later discover to validate his words. And the people that believe by faith, it's a blessing. That's why the faith is honored so much, because he knew this. He knew there was 46 chromosomes in the olive tree. And olive trees don't just have green olives or black olives. They have both. And so they're just different ripeness levels of olives. I always thought there was like a green olive tree and a black olive tree. But our Father, he knew to use this tree for a reason. Even the oil from the olives lights the lamps in the temple. And 73,300 other trees. That's the number I was trying to think of. I couldn't remember. Only the ash and the olive tree have 46 chromosomes. And this is why I think it's really cool when you see prophecies like in Zechariah. Where is his feet going to step down in that day of battle? You know, when they're trying to unite in battle against him, the Mount of Olives. His feet are going to touch down on the Mount of Olives. Olive tree grafted in, harvest time, coming for his harvest. When the Messiah was talking to the disciples, where was he at about the end times? He was mentioning the end times. He was on the Mount of Olives. Stuff is not random. And there's other creatures that have 46 chromosomes. When you look outside the plant species into the animal world, you have things like the blue bull, the Asian antelope, 46 chromosomes. So you're seeing there's another side to this. There's not just the grafting into the olive tree. There's a beast side of things as well. And you got to choose the right side. You want to be grafted into the olive tree. And not only that, talking about the Bible being true, far greater, far more true than any science book out there. Our Messiah in the book of Matthew, chapter 24, says, he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Four winds, not three winds, not two winds, four winds. And you see that in Revelation as well. And these angels are going to go stand on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds. Why do you have to go to the corners to stop the four winds? Well, the book of Enoch tells us the four winds come from the firmament. There's portals in the heavens, blowing winds that help dictate our weather. It's why we need weather stations in Antarctica all over the place. Those are where our fastest winds come from. And the four winds they're talking about, they weren't discovered until the 1920s. So a couple thousand years earlier, we have our spirit-led Messiah talking about them. John in Revelation repeating that. He heard those words and he was saying it again. The four winds. Science is only just now discovering things that were written thousands of years ago to be true. The 1920s. And they are telling us that people that believed in the biblical earth back in the 1500s were so dumb. No, they're the ones that had it figured out. They dumbed us down to get us to believe in that. These four winds are moving in the direction the earth is supposed to be spinning and going faster. They prove that the world's not moving. They are being blown out of the firmament, just like Enoch says. The angels have to go to the four corners of the earth to hold back the four winds. When it talks about shutting up heaven so that it doesn't rain, it's literally being shut up. Those portals that help control things like rain and wind and all that stuff, you know, they're trying to do their geoengineering now and mess with things. But when our Father has those portals shut up, it's not going to rain. There is nothing they can do. And so we are seeing that the word is far more true than anything else out there. Any science book, any textbook, it is provably more true. And one thing that I want to correct myself on, I already corrected myself in a video, but when I was speaking at the conference, I had yet to fully see, I think I just started seeing this, but I didn't really talk about it, is I used to always teach DNA in a way that compared it to computer code, because that's what a lot of people do. They compare things to what they understand. And computer code is something a lot of people understand. I'm not one of those people. And DNA was something I thought we understood. And when I was teaching my students back in those days, they would say that 1 cubic millimeter of DNA, and a cubic millimeter is if you know how big a millimeter is, it's teeny tiny. And a cubic millimeter of DNA, they said, would have about 1,000 terabytes. Well, then newer information now says it's about 1,000,000 terabytes. And so I don't ever want to take away from my Father's glory. I know it's far greater than that, but let's just pretend. Let's pretend it's 1,000,000 terabytes worth of information per cubic millimeter. If you don't know what terabytes are, which I never really knew what they were because we hardly ever use terabytes, that's a lot of storage. Now computers are starting to do that now that we're doing videos and high definition and all that. But 1,000,000 terabytes would be 1,000,000,000 gigabytes. That's a lot of gigabytes. Now, let's scale that out. Think about how many cubic millimeters of DNA you have in your body. They say it's about 1,992,000 cubic millimeters of DNA. That is a number that is so big. When you scale that up, how many terabytes of information is that? Well, it's like 1,992,000,000,000 terabytes of data. And when you try to find out how much information, how to store that much information, like there's just no way to do it. This world could not contain that much information. With all the data centers we have, we couldn't contain that much information. And this is just one body of one person that our Father made on day 6 of creation. Think about that. Technology can't compete with what our Father made, and they are telling us nothing made us. Nothing. And we are far more complex than anything that could ever exist. And these numbers aren't even really probably accurate. I know it's far greater than that. And so don't take my word for any of this. This is just based on current data, current teachings, and they're usually way off when it comes to DNA. And if I had to ask you guys, where do you think DNA's discovery came from, the double helix? You guessed it. Fellows of the Royal Society. DNA. Fellows of the Royal Society. Francis Crick and James Watson. They discovered the double helix in 1953. And by discovered, I mean they didn't discover it. They made a model that's outdated because they're now finding new molecules when they go outside of the old test tube experiments, according to the people doing the Cell Atlas project. So if you're finding new molecules, then your current model is false. And so they say it's a double helix. I find it interesting that the double helix symbolism has been around for a long time. Even our medical logos, they sometimes use the caduceus, which I just found out was, I mean, I knew this a while back, but I really didn't focus on it too much. But looking back into it now with this, that the caduceus represents the Greek god Hermes, who was known as Mercury to the Romans. What does Mercury do? Mercury was the guide of souls to the underworld, taking people to Sheol. And the very first NASA mission was the Mercury mission, and their patch had an upside down cross. And so that double helix shape does have a dark origin. I'm not saying it's not a double helix, but I don't think it is. Now that I'm looking into all this, I don't think it's even something we could see. That's why there's no photos of the double helix. You can try to find photos if you don't believe me. Look for real photos of the double helix DNA. They don't exist. Only cartoons. And so looking at Mercury here, you'll notice some strange things. There's a little goat, and there's what looks like a rooster standing next to him, but he's got a staff on his arm with a serpent twisted around it, and he has a wing on his helmet. So the caduceus has the wings and the serpent wrapped around, or the double helix serpents wrapped around the pole there. And when I was going through our study this last Sabbath, we were reading, and it was talking about sacrificing to demons. And it says, no more, they shall no more sacrifice their sacrifices to goat demons. What? This is the ESV. My translation didn't say that, but we had to look into it. We had to do a deep dive into this. And that's literally what it's talking about. Goat demons, kind of like the Baphomet, after whom they whore. This shall be a statute forever for them throughout their generations. Look at the goat demon. Look at its stomach. Look what it has. It's got the double helix, the serpent that you see. And next to Mercury, what is there? There's a goat. I wonder if he's the goat demon they were talking about, they were sacrificing to, that we now have medical facilities where we take people for their health. That symbol. And they say, oh, some people just mistakenly use that. They're supposed to use the other one. No, I think it's all intentional. And reminds me further of that crooked serpent mentioned. It says, and this is in Isaiah. I love Isaiah, becoming my favorite prophet here. In the day that Yahuwah with his sore and great and strong sword shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent. And he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. So yeah, I think there's something to this crooked serpent aspect in DNA. They try to make it seem simple, like something we can just understand. And even with the Human Genome Project, they didn't map out the human genome. They say they did, but look at the NIH's website. They didn't. And now, I know this is an animation, so please, there is a double helix on the animation. I know that's blasphemous, but the thing I want to bring about here, with all that data we talked about, if those numbers are correct, that's just scraping the surface with how cool your DNA is, because you can stretch it out. They can break it apart and like pull it out, and it looks just transparent when you separate the DNA from things like strawberries and pull it out. It's real stringy and it gets elongated. And so to pack something up, it might have some sort of coiling mechanism that our Father designed to house everything. But they tell us that of our alleged 30 trillion cells, there's about 1.8 meters of DNA in each of those cells. What does that mean? Well, do some math. 1.8 meters times 30 trillion. That puts you in like the 54 trillions. Is that trillions? Am I doing that right? You got hundreds, thousands, millions, billion. Yeah, 54 trillion meters of DNA, which converts to about 54 billion kilometers. And the circumference of the equator is about 40,075 kilometers. That means your DNA, if stretched out from end to end, could go around the equator over 1.3 million times. And so we are wonderfully made. That's an understatement to say that. And so going through all this stuff, this is more of an extended version of what we did at TruthorCon, but it's something that is worth going over because it shows us that all of creation points to intelligent design. And there's only one book that I've ever found, or not one book, there's more books, they're all compiled together, the biblical text, that have so many prophetic interconnected aspects. And even with your body, this is something I just found out. I knew we had those floating ribs, but I never really thought of it. When you look at things like your rib cage, all but two of your ribs are connected to one another and to your sternum that protect your heart. You have 10 in the upper or the north and 2 in the lower or the south. Isn't that interesting? The 2 in the south are separated from the others. Seems prophetic, because when you look at what happened to the children of Israel, 10 tribes collectively called Israel went north. 2, Judah and Benjamin went south. Like, it seems so prophetic. Just even creation itself, the creation of the body. And where did he make a woman from? He took a rib out of Adam to make a woman. And look at the DNA, look at the chromosomes of a woman versus a man. He added to what we could do, what man could do. He added to that. You can see that in the sex chromosomes. It is added to. The Y chromosome of a man looks nothing like the X chromosome of a woman. We do have an X as well, but they're XX, we're XY. And they have added information. Our Father added things to them. They can grow a child. They can feed that child. And so there's a lot of things that still echo from creation that we can look at to this very day and see. The rib cage, I think, being one of them that I had missed, didn't even realize, 10 upper, 2 lower, 10 are connected, 2 separated. Think about that. And so with all this said, it's been quite the journey compiling all this stuff, seeing all these things, and would not have seen it if I had stuck to the script, that demonic script that we were talking about at the beginning, known as standards. And those standards are outright demonic. And so we have been blessed to be joined by truth soldiers around the world, destroying the demonic script with CreationStandard. My brother he offers biblical history classes that go over the same types of deep connections, where you are essentially going through a journey where you are proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that our Father's words are the truth. It is a priceless journey and experience. And our goal is for it to be spirit-led, not led by egos or people who are just all-knowing. It's about what our Father is showing us. And if he didn't show us this stuff, we wouldn't see it. We would miss it. We would still be walking around with blinders on. But he is opening our eyes with his Holy Spirit. It's beautiful. It's something that I pray that we do not take for granted. And we have to stay humble, because we have seen time and time again so many people be prideful and think that they're better than people in the past. They're not going to make the same mistakes, and they end up making the same mistakes. And so we definitely are blessed, and that's something we try to tell our students, who you can see on this map are worldwide, and there's a lot of countries that are missing, and it's because it's illegal. And there's legality differences within the US as well, but there's many places on the world map that it's illegal to have the homeschool opportunity. And so we have our first ever this year. Somebody joined us from France, where it's illegal. They're rebels. They are fighting the system. They are still going to public school, but they're doing CreationStandard outside of class, which I think is amazing. And so this was, let's see if I can find myself. There we go. A little bit longer than I thought. I should have probably made this a 2-part series, but I got excited talking about this stuff with you guys. It's my passion, earth science, life science, but using those, not just studying those for the sake of head knowledge, but using those to prove that our Father's words are the truth. They're the ultimate truth. And we have to be ready for the things that are going on in the world today. We have to know why they're going on. Why are we having threats from above? Why is there a 3-eye atlas scare? Why are they causing so much chaos? And it's because they're trying to bring about a new era, a new age. It says it right there on the dollar bill. They're talking about this new age. Look up where that comes from. It's not coming from this new age of our Father's Holy Spirit being poured out. No, it's a new age of Saturn worship and Apollo worship. You could look that up. I just found that out. And I think that is dark, because it's right there on the great seal of our U.S. currency. It's the great seal of the U.S. And why that's dark is, if you're going to choose something that represents your country, that's it. That's what they're choosing. And it all goes back to Rome and Babylon and all these things. And so, yeah, information overload, I know, but I had 45 minutes to share all that at the conference. And so it only took me an hour 29 minutes to do it here because I didn't have time constraints. So you could imagine a paraphrased version. If they do indeed share that, I'll upload it here because it's the Cliff Notes version that you can share with people. That's probably more digestible. But there's a lot of information in there, and I take no credit for all of that. That is stuff that our Father has helped me see. And if it wasn't for throwing away the script, I wouldn't have seen it. I would still be in the classroom trying to be crafty and teach around, their demonic standards. And it is so hard to do. It is like, I remember when I first started really coming to truth and knowing, like, I can't teach this the way that they're saying at all. What can I do? And it was just, be wise as serpents. You have to be wise. They're using their false wisdom that he's going to destroy. And I believe we're all a part of that prophecy of destroying that foolish wisdom of the world. And so we got to work together, guys. We are a team. I cannot do this alone. We need help. We really, really need help. The laborers are few. And so fellow helpers, I mean, any way you can help, if it's support financially, if it's just sharing this stuff, getting the word out, waking up people that are in the public school setting, saving their children, the most precious gift they have, that's going and spending most of their life in front of false wisdom. We have to do something about it. We have to either change the system, which I don't think is going to happen, or get people out of the system. And and we sit in these systems for so many years. And as a teacher of almost 17 years when I was in public school, now it's longer, but in public school, they force you to go to the graduation. They're like, you have to go to the graduation, like you have to. And even if I didn't have seniors, all the high school teachers go to the graduation. And it's weird. It's a dark robe ceremony. It's a graduation ceremony. You wear a dark robe. They make the teachers wear black robes. And I everything in me is like, what's going on? This is what we got to do. Come on now. So yeah, it's dark, and that's what it's all about, is getting your diploma, having that dark robe ceremony. And that's not what we're about at Creation Standard. We are about letting our Father's words be true, putting it to the test. And so if you're interested in that, you can still join us. It's not too late. It is November, but all of our lessons are pre-recorded, and I guess we upload them every week. Some of them are from last year's lessons that I've uploaded. If I've changed the lesson, then I will add a new video, but they're all there. Anybody that joins can get caught up. Join us live. You don't have to be caught up to join us live. You can join us live while you're getting caught up as well. And so it's quite fun. It's not as smooth as it was last year, starting out, because my secretary, which was my wife, did a lot of all the registration. I didn't have to worry about it. So that's easy. To me, I'm like, wow, this is going good. I knew she was working hard. She's far more efficient than I am. And this year I found out, when I was starting to do registration, we were getting complaints. So the complaints this year have grown when I was trying to do them, because my wife had our 6th child, our daughter. So yeah, it was tough. But thank you guys for sticking around. We saw so many of you joining us as we were going. I tried to wait for you as long as I could, but we got started. And so sorry if you missed anything. It's definitely worth going back. We've tried to cover some of the more powerful connections that prove that evolution is demonic, and the false narrative, the old earth and evolution is demonic. I tried to stay more away from biblical cosmology, even though that's like the one thing that just destroys all this anyways. But we don't have people that'll even look into it because they're so blinded by the false science. So we can break apart the false science, then they're probably going to go, what else are they talking about? If we can see that dinosaurs have, all these things with them that prove they're young and all that, like, maybe there's something else they're lying about. And so that is a good start. I saw somebody asking, let me see, where was it at? And there it is with the large bold. They said, I have some mimosa flower that I dried out from this summer. Oh man, you were saying that. You're probably noticing like my dark circles. Yeah. That was something that my friend Brian helped me or introduced me to. He's mimosa. We have these big mimosa trees where I live, just growing around their property. And he has this book, this book of herbs, and I have insomnia. And he says, oh, look, it says the mimosa flowers are good for insomnia. And I'm like, I'm going to try it. I'm desperate. I don't want to try the pharmacia. And I slept for the first time, like fell asleep fast for the first time in a long time. And it's really relaxing. There's no crazy side effects. So I'm not a doctor, but I know that it worked for me. And I'm someone who could lay there and not sleep for 3 hours straight. Like that is like just, and so I get a lot of thinking done. And sometimes, you can turn the Bible on and listen to that and get some learning done while you're laying there. But yeah, that definitely works. I appreciate the offer. I tried putting some in my freezer, and I should not have used, I should have used a nice freezer bag, but I was in a hurry and I threw them in like a Walmart bag. Don't do that. It was awful. It just tastes like plastic. I was like, I can't do it. It doesn't taste good. Yeah. But yeah, they say that stuff works, and that's true. I'm a believer now. That stuff works really well. Just get a bunch, like a big handful of these things. I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't know serving sizes. I just was making it up as we went and threw a big handful into a hot water, and the water kind of turns yellow. Add a little bit of sweetener if you want. I prefer doing that, and then man, it was nice. I fell asleep. Your eyes will just feel heavy, and you just close them. You fall asleep. It's not like a tranquilizer. I'm telling you, it's not that. It's not that kind of experience. But don't fight the sleep. When you're tired, when you have it, just go to sleep. Because if you fight it, it wears off. Like it doesn't last as long. I know that was a random side note. I just saw the comment and I thought it reminded me. It reminded me about that. So maybe that could help somebody. And I know it's out of season, and I'm sure that's probably not a thing now. The mimosa tea, you probably can't buy it online, but you might be able to. Yeah. But awesome. You guys are the best. I cannot believe. Do you guys have any questions about anything? I want to be able to fellowship more with you guys. Ask questions. If you have them, put them in all caps so I can see them. We're here to grow together. That's what I liked about the conference, was that they can just pass the mic around and people can talk. And that to me is awesome. And then afterwards, you can actually go down and talk to people in person. That's really cool. That's why I think these in-person gatherings are essential. We get to branch out more, see each other, see some of you people as actual real people. I still see you as that, but seeing you in person, it's totally different than online. All right, let's see. I'm not seeing any questions. I'm trying to scroll back. Almost, a laptop is almost dead. Yeah, I know the struggle. They have to charge. They have electricity and they have to charge. We have electricity being used in our bodies. We don't have to charge, thank goodness. Could you imagine? Like, hold on, I'll come get you in a minute. Let me unplug. No. Someone said I just started looking into the little season. That was probably talked about already. Not yet, but I want to do something real big about that and really, really give that subject what it deserves, because there's such a divide. And I get a lot of hate when I speak about that subject. It's controversial now. When something's trending, when you start believing something and you get excited, you want everybody to believe the way you do, or it makes you angry and you're like, you're not seeing it. And I feel like people get angry at me when I say, I don't believe that. I don't believe that we're in the little season. I think we're in a longer season of deception with the unclean spirits deceiving the earth to gather us together to battle against the threat from above, which is what all these lies, the globe earth lie and everything is based on, because the threats from above. With the little season, the threats on the ground, and the firmament's already parted, the stars have already fallen, the kingdom's set up. People have been going to it year to year. They know where the kingdom's at. The kingdom never hides. It's always where it's at. And so, yeah, definitely something to go to the prophets for. Study prophecy. Prophecy, I think, is what's missing from the little season. And I would love to have somebody come on, and I've thought about it, having somebody, I think JT follows JC, that channel, having him come on. I meant to reach out to him a long time ago and have him come on, but we had our child, and I have just been extremely busy ever since. Haven't had a chance to talk about it, but I would like to cover that more in depth. Do you think the earth could be much larger than what we imagine? I used to believe, and this was a theory, something my brother said. He goes, you know how the gospel has to reach every nation before their time runs out? He says, what if they're hiding another nation, like beyond where we're allowed to travel? And they know that if they can shield that nation from the truth, that their time doesn't run out. And I thought, wow, that makes sense. That's why the Antarctic Treaty is so serious. Like, guys, don't let the gospel message come this way, like keep it all. But what I think though, is that the gospel message, they changed it. After the resurrection, what did they do? They're like, the truth has to reach everybody. And then we run out of time. Why don't we just join them and change the gospel message and make them think they're preaching the gospel, and then have them go out to the rest of the world? I think that's really what happened. And so they've put out a false teaching. Rome merged with Christianity and was slaughtering real believers. Why would you be killing people and then go, all right, now let's help fund your missions? And so I think that the world isn't much larger. Enoch gets a tour, so he does get to go pretty far and see some things. So I think beyond Antarctica, um, where we're allowed to travel, I think there are some giant mountains. Like the way he said it, like one of them was larger than any mountain in the world. We're told Mount Everest is the largest mountain in the world. And so I think when you go beyond, there's larger mountains, larger things, and it gets pretty magnificent before you get to the so-called ends of the earth where the firmament would be founded. And so, yeah, that's a really good question, but I don't think there's tons of continents out there. And the reason I don't is because the fourth book of Ezra, 2 Ezra, says 6 parts of land, 1 part water. So you've got 7 parts, right? And when you look at our world map, the circle of the earth, the Antarctica part, is that 6th part land. And the waters, the seas gathered together would be that 7th part. And so unless the way our continents are, because sometimes they're connected, so they might count that as 1 part, and there could be an extra continent or so. But yeah, I think that we're dealing with simply close to what we see now, and the firmament's founded not very far out, because planes, when they're going to Antarctica, this is what's cool. The North Pole, when they're in the North Pole, they have to fly at about 40,000 feet. When they get to the South Pole region, before they reach Antarctica, they have to already be at about 10,000 feet elevation. That's in their flight manuals. It's for a reason. And the air pressure there is much lower than it is in the north. The reason it's lower is because there's less air up above you. The air pressure we have that's so great when you're at sea level, it's so great. There's a big, there's miles of air above you pushing down. We can't see it, but it's there pushing down. And so when there's more air above you, a higher ceiling, more air pressure. Lower ceiling, less air above you, low air pressure. And Antarctica is the lowest air pressure in the world. Plane flight manuals have them flying lower than anywhere in the world for a reason. And that's why. A really good question. Got me going in a bunch of different directions. But yeah, good question. What do you think about the 3i Atlas stuff? Well, first of all, they say it's the 3rd interstellar object, with the first one being back in 2017. Like, what? I never heard of the first one, but there was a first one and then a second one, and then now we have our 3rd one, 3i, third eye, probably something to do with that. But 3i Atlas was let me see if I can pull up my notes here. Atlas was the deity that's holding up the firmament. That was his punishment by Zeus. And so they are, of course, going to tie that into stuff. They like bringing in their false deities. But yeah, I think it's one of those things that's going to help people prepare for the so-called threat from above. When something shows up, they could, let's say wormwood happens, something falls into the water. Oh, it was 3i Atlas. Like they're going to have a cover story for the revelation events. Otherwise, the revelation events can't happen. So they have to have a false narrative. They have to have a false story. And it's just another part of that false story. Is it a light in the firmament? Has somebody actually filmed it? I don't know. They may have. But their footage of it, the pictures they're showing us of 3i Atlas, it has a light that's not moving while the other stars are moving, but it's closer to us than the stars. The parallax there does not add up. It should be moving greater than the stars, because the stars should be further, and they're not. So yeah, I think it's a big deception. Let me see. Somebody said, see my last comment. That was Zane. Let me scroll back, Zane. What is the Book of Enoch translation, and where can I get it? Man, if I only had it up here with me. I think my copy is downstairs. I think. But it's the it's called it's just the number one Enoch contextual study guide, or a contextual study guide, something about along those lines. And it's the reason I recommend that translation is because it has color-coded context to show you how it relates to Scripture, and it's made by a Bible scholar who believes in biblical cosmology. And so it's a really good translation. I used it with our Bible study and going through Enoch again, because I don't want to just say that I believe Enoch is Scripture and just take it because it has cool stories. I want to look at the prophecies. I want to look at how it lines up with Scripture. And when they're talking about Enoch in Scripture, does it line up with that? Like, is this the same story? And it matches. And the Dead Sea Scroll fragments match the fragments that were in match the text that were in Ethiopia very well. And so you have other witnesses that match up things. And so the Dead Sea Scrolls being a witness to that, Scripture being a witness to that. So yeah, I recommend a contextual study guide, First Enoch by Sean Griffin. I can send you links if you want. Just let me know. Send me an email if you want links to it. Someone said, if you keep listening to the Bible, you will become fearful. It's actually the opposite for me. I don't feel the fear. Now, it depends on how you're saying fear. More like a reverence of the Most High. Yeah, you're going to have more reverence. Here it is, 3:38. Oh my goodness! Wow, early bird. Yeah, I know. That's usually what time I'm up trying to sleep. So if it's 3:48 or 3:38 a.m., yeah, I feel you. Let me see. The Earth is here. Sorry, looking for more. The Souk film crew is here. My goodness. If you haven't seen the document called Origins Untold Ancient Cosmology on Amazon or YouTube or the Roku channel, you need to go watch it right now because those legendary film creators there, the Souk film, David and Sarah, these people have been gifted and they made a biblical cosmology documentary. You need to watch it. Origins Untold. Check it out now. It's free. Everybody was crying about it to be free. Please make it free. It's on YouTube. Go to their YouTube channel. Fesouk Films, Fesiuk Films. And that is where you will find that documentary. If you don't want to go through the trouble of going to Amazon, I recommend buying it on Amazon, though. I want them to have support. It is a good documentary to watch with the family because it's peaceful. All right. To be there to eat the flesh. I think the Northern Lights might be a glimpse of the throne room. Yeah, I know. I'm so hoping when they have the Northern Light stuff that it's like actually the Northern Lights because I really want to see them. But I'm always like, it's probably a harp thing going on. Let me see. I don't have them posted. Sorry, I'm trying to find questions. I'm behind on the questions here. It looks like. Amen. Beginning of wisdom. Oh, is it really? Is that really what it's called on Tubi now? Origins Untold Flat Earth on Tubi. That's cool. I did not know. Hopefully they can find it there too if you're on Tubi. That'll really get some people. I think they stuck with ancient cosmology because they were the flat Earth bird had been hijacked. Working on a sequel. That is awesome. I've been thinking about that. I'm like, man, we need a good sequel. I'm actually compiling. I felt led to start compiling the best proofs that we have, and I'm going to do a video on that. And as I'm thinking about compiling them and doing that, I get a call from a friend who's like, we're going to do a little documentary, a mini documentary on biblical cosmology. I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but he has a really good idea of how to get people to watch, like the title. I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know why I didn't think of that. Probably because it's genius. But yeah, I'm looking forward. They're going to try to make it a good production too. I look forward to that. If there's a sequel, got to get more involved. I think people were just so scared of you guys. They don't trust anybody in the truth community. They're like, we don't want any part of this hit piece on flat Earth. And you guys were just like, it's not a hit piece. But nobody believed you. Everybody was looking for the worst in everybody. I understand being skeptical, especially if it's like a really talented, and they saw your work and they're like, that's too high quality, guys. We're backing out. But no, they are humble, gifted. When you see the quality of their work, don't think that they're those people. They are not those people. They are really good. Heavily censored. Like they should have that. They should be. I mean, they won a lot of awards. The documentary won. Geez, I think it was like a dozen film festival awards. Probably have a room dedicated to all the trophies. The truth shall set you free. Do you like Hebrews? Let's see. The foundation is the word. Yep, that's true. Somebody said, where did that? There we go. The sequel is about flat Earth. Oh, it's not about. Oh, okay. New topics. That's right. Might be what I was talking about. Did you see what I was talking about? The giant tree thing. Did you see it? I don't know if you saw it. Thought of you guys there. All right. Well, what a blessing, guys. I know it's getting late. My family needs me to put the young ones to sleep. We need to have a virtual meetup where we have like Zoom, because I've upgraded my account to where like we go live, hang out, then we can go to Zoom and have like a massive webinar type hangout or meetup. Well, like I think I can hold like 100 people on my current account, but if it got bigger, we could do it like a webinar. I could upgrade. It would just be cool to have something like that, because I've seen virtual conferences where people, have other presenters coming on live, but like an actual virtual meetup, that'd be so cool, especially because you can break those things up into rooms. It would be like a fun thing to do. It'd be a lot of work. It'd be fun. I guess it wouldn't be that much work. Not as much work as getting in a plane and going somewhere. But yeah, thanks, Tracy. What a blessing you are as well. Thank you all of our fellow helpers out there. The ones who were behind the scenes while I was talking and reading, they're taking care of the comments. And fortunately, due to censorship, there's not a whole lot of trolls anymore. But I have had a couple pop on, and I'm like, ooh, I get excited. When I see the hate, I'm like, ooh, this means that somebody might have got past censorship somehow, I don't know. But be nice to those people. If you see somebody being mean, like, there's a good chance they need us to shine some light their direction. So long as they're not being malicious towards people, like repetitively going to the same, posting the same copy and paste comment to hundreds of people. Somebody said, what happened to your buddy that taught Torah? I don't see it. Are you talking about Matthew Beavers? Probably talking about Matthew Beavers, I think. Him or Ken. I don't know which one. Probably Matthew. I know that Matthew has had a child, and that's a change of pace. If he was doing ministry with just him and his wife, and now they have a child, adding one child to the mix changes things. That's probably a big part of it. I have 6, and so doing stuff like this is a challenge. Here any second now, I'll probably hear a scream like, "We need dad." Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. His dad did pass away. Yeah, that did happen. Lots of things have happened over the last few years. Well, alrighty, you guys are the best. Thanks for staying with us as long as you have. My goodness, what a long time it's been. I'm always blessed to have you guys joining us live. I know that presentation was lengthy. I would love to break it down. I just couldn't think of a way to do it. And I told people I would cover it. So it's covered. I've talked about a lot of the stuff on there. Not as nice and formal as I want to, but there'll be times I'll break it down. I'll probably make some shorts out of that or redo some of the segments. But yeah, lots of fun, lots of information. Trying to get ready for these events of Revelation takes some work. So we're going to probably have some hangouts where we're getting ready, making ourselves ready, going over what needs to be done to be ready for these last days. How do we be ready? How do we be sealed, so that we're not harmed and all these different things that people are worried about? Like, how are we supposed to live? It's a big deal. It's an important thing to answer. So we'll try to do more of that, getting more onto the biblical side of things. But you guys are the best. Thank you very much for staying humble in spite of being future immortals, children of royalty, children of the Most High. It is a title that is just an honor. And just to think that our Father keeps us humble, and our Messiah was as humble as he was. And he said the greatest in the kingdom of heaven are humble. And so stay humble. You guys stay blessed. We love you guys. You guys are such a blessing. We will see you next time. Have you been working overtime to protect your children from all the lies, indoctrination, and agendas, only to find out that the stuff is everywhere? If so, you're not alone. There are countless truth soldiers out there who are enduring the same battle you are, and there's something we can do. And we're not here to hand out blindfolds to everybody so we can protect all of our children. We are here to give them a strong foundation, one that is based on proving all things and using earth and life science as well as math and biblical history to prove that our Father's words are the truth. It's a scientific journey. You have 2 teachers joining with lots of experience. And this journey is one that will be live and interactive for multiple time zones around the world, where children are logging in to learn and explore our Father's intelligent design, as well as what this world actually is compared to what they say it is. It's a life-changing experience, and it will provide you and your children with a foundation that the lies cannot break apart. And if this sounds like something you're interested in, go to CreationStandard.com, check out our course information, and register today so that you don't miss out on this incredible journey as we replace the indoctrination with our Father's provable truth of creation at CreationStandard.com.